Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy, Iceman and Bob, Tech and Gaming. We're going to talk about the whole 3000 nit claim that you have now seen from both LG as well as Samsung. Two different technologies, but nonetheless the same amount of claimed nit brightness, okay? Make sure when you come through to smash the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't done so and hit that notification bell. It's greatly appreciated. Feel free if you have any questions to hit the super chat. I do appreciate that. Everything goes back into the work that I do. But nonetheless, with that being said, we're going to talk about the big thing because this is going to be the talk for 2024 and this is going to set the standard. When Sony is touting mini LED and they're touting 4000 nits to match the mastering monitors, come to find out everyone else is going to do 3000 nits. Now, honestly, this is not a big deal just while I'm on this conversation because it's going to take some time to encode or create or start to release content at 4000 nits, whether it's via streaming platforms, if there was on discs or any other tangible or intangible forms of media. So we have some time with that. Back to the 3000 nit conversation. This is game changer because last year in 2023, it was 2000 nits. Now, the biggest thing that I want to talk about with the technology here is that these claims are essentially what both panel techs are capable of. Just like last year in 2023, the panel tech of the second generation QD OLED was capable of 2000 nits. LG came out with micro lens array or MLA, and they claimed essentially a similar thing where they said, hey, we can hit up to that nits. And maybe on vivid or some crazy mode and the perfect conditions, you might be able to achieve that. However, what we found out is that in actual practice, we were getting more like 1400 nits sustained out of the claimed 2000 nits. All right. Mind you, these are specular highlights. These are certain window sizes under 10%, or let's just go ahead and include 10% and below. This was not full field. We got essentially up to about 260 nits in HDR. That was very good, essentially, and maybe up to a couple of hundred, give or take, in SDR, just dependent on whether we're talking about LG or whether we're talking about QD OLED. But nonetheless, those were the numbers. So out of the 2000 nits from last year, it was only 1400. Now, the good thing about it was that 1400 nits was also what we could achieve in an accurate mode. So not only was the modes accurate, it was also what was capable when we calibrated them. That's a very important point because most of us want that accuracy, the creator's intent, etc., etc. And what I always say is if you prefer more, at least if you watch with that accuracy, you have something to stand on. Okay, you can adjust from there if that's what you like. If you want a little bit more, a little bit less, hey, you have that foundation. All right. Obviously, if your television set is calibrated, you don't need to make any adjustments at all. Nonetheless, fast forward to today or maybe in a month or two, whenever these sets are going to be released. The 3000 nits, right? That's what they're claiming. Please keep in mind, this is what the panels are claiming. And one of the things that I want to put on the screen, okay, I'm going to show you something. Vincent at HD TV Test, he had actually got his hands on the LG Meta 2.0 panel. Okay, you have to keep in mind this was the panel, okay, not the actual TV. Okay, no one has their hands on the G4 or the M4 or the S95D or S90D for that matter, right? These television sets have not been released. If they were, we would have them. They would be reviewed. We would be able to calibrate them, take a look, et cetera, and give you a full assessment. The panel tech, however, has been available. So Vincent actually did a measurement of that. He got to put his equipment up, and he did show that the panel is capable of what they said. He did show that it was capable of the 3,000 nits that they claimed. That should not be surprising. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pull this up. All right, let me see if I can get that on the screen for y'all real quick. Give me 1 second. Let's see. We're going to take a look at... How about you take a look at me, because I want to make sure I can get this on the screen for you all, okay? So bear with me. I'm attempting to get this up. Okay, so now let's take a look at this here. All right, and I'll try to make it bigger so you all can really see the numbers. I know it's kind of hard because let's see if that's any better for you all. Hopefully you should be able to see everything right now. Okay, so this is a measurement that Vincent from HDTV Test took of LG's new Meta 2.0 panel, whatever they're going to call it. We're going by that name, right? You can see that it varied, but essentially he had a sustained over 3,000 nits of brightness. So you're like, okay, great, it can hit that. All right. There's another picture that I want to actually show you all. Now, this here that we're going to take a look at, and let me make sure it's bigger. What we're looking at now is a picture, and this is the difference. The first picture was just as is, everything maxed out. The picture we're looking at now is without the Meta Multi Booster, okay? In terms of the brightness, the software was not applied. So we could say the brightness booster software that we're familiar with, this was actually not applied. And for some reason it's still showing, hold on a second. We should be looking at this one. So why is, let's see, hold on a second. Let me get this up on for you, because all right, it should be much better. Okay, my apologies. Nonetheless, this is what we're looking at when it comes to everything without the brightness booster. I'm just going to make a long story short. Okay, this is without the software being applied. Still, 2300 nits is very impactful. That is very respectable in terms of OLED, period. I don't care what the technology is. Now, what I would like to add is this is still not applied to an actual television that's going to have their software. So for instance, this is the panel without it being applied to the G4, the M4 itself. So you're going to have the Alpha 11 processor in there, right? Same thing. Let's say somehow Sony gets a hold of MLA for like their A80M. They could very well do this, people. Please keep this in mind. Everyone says Sony is out the picture. They're not working on OLEDs. That's just a fake rumor that's going around. They still are. While they're working on their mini LED software and television set to be released in the wild, they could very well surprise us with an A80M that has some type of MLA on it. And if so, then you have to apply the XR processor or whatever it's going to be. If they tweak that, Sony could surprise us completely. We don't know, right? We're just making a lot of assumptions. Sony seems to pull these type of surprises every year. So I expect, and I would not be surprised if Sony did this. Nonetheless, they're going to apply their processing to it. We're probably looking at a more realistic 2000 nits. I'll say 2 to 2200. 23 may be possible in certain picture modes once it's calibrated and perhaps in the most accurate picture modes. That's still a 5 to 700 nit increase easily from last year, because last year we were hitting around 1400 nits, give or take 14, 15. I mean, we could say either one of those two, but we were hitting around that in an accurate picture mode. So this is very promising. I seriously doubt any of these manufacturing companies are going to actually push it all the way to 3000 nits. Just to protect the panel, especially LG. I know they're going to have the heat sink. I know they're going to have some other processing to mitigate things, and they tweaked it. It's a 2.0 to not waste the efficiency. But I will say this: if QD OLED, which normally runs cooler than WRGB OLED, won't push the envelope, I doubt that LG will too. Might I add, for all you Samsung aficionados, right? All you people that love Samsung, just like in the previous years, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some way to go inside the service menu and perhaps increase the brightness, just as we did from the S95B to the S90C and the S95C and the S89 and all these other variants, right? But at least in terms of QD OLED, that has been possible. There may be a possibility of doing that again. So on Samsung, there could be a possibility where you may be able to push your set to 3000 nits, but that may come at a risk. Okay, we really don't know what's going on. I will say one of the best things here to keep in mind is that Samsung seems to match what LG is doing, and LG seems to be matching what Samsung is doing. And they both have an improved processor for this year. So it's going to be very interesting to see exactly what's what. It's going to be very interesting, right? You just never know. You just never know. Samsung is claiming, like I said, they're going to put a lot of their technology in everything at least 55, 65, and 77. A lot of these monitors will also have access to QD OLED. Those are the monitor sizes below. They have a 27-inch, basically a 32-inch, a 34-inch, 49-inch, right? Different types of monitors, but nonetheless, they have those. They're claiming, again, brighter color, because it's not just brightness, brighter color. Okay, 3000 nit. They're claiming the performance of the color is also been boosted. Okay, and then they're claiming that it's more durable, so it will be able to handle that. I'm sure that LG has thought about the things with their WRGB panel being able to handle it, and they're also claiming that they're boosting the colors as well. It's just they're going hand in hand with everything. Like if we take a look at this, my apologies for everything being small, but this is one of the best pictures I could get my hands on, so I'll try to make it bigger. But just know it's gonna kind of blur out the text a little bit, but you should be able to see it. So we're going to get an increase, again, not just the total brightness. This is what LG is gonna do. The peak brightness is also going to be increased, and the color brightness is going to be increased. On the G3, and we could say the C3 and go on down and so on and so on, but mainly the G3 and C3. But let's just talk about the G3 since it had MLA. The biggest difference between the G3 and the S95C or even the S90C of last year was that the colors weren't there. You might have had more brightness at times, and depending on whether it's SDR or HDR, you may have had more of brightness in the G3. Now, this is outside of gaming, of course. Both SDR and HDR gaming did not have the brightness that Samsung had, but that's another conversation for another day. The point that I'm making is that the biggest thing people would see in comparisons is, oh, well, the G3 doesn't have the color. It's bright, but it doesn't have the color of QD OLED. So they found a way to increase that color brightness as well. And so this should be a very interesting find between these two. But I do want to say right off the bat, if you're expecting 3000 nits out of any one of these TVs, especially in an accurate mode, it's not happening. I could just tell you right off the bat, it's not happening. It's what the panel's capable of. It's not happening. we have yet to see. And what'll be interesting is, I know the same thing with Sony claiming 4,000 nits. I would like to see if Sony's mini LED is actually going to hit a sustained 4,000 nits. Even though it might be easier for LED to do it versus OLED, I still would like to see that type of brightness sustained, as well as in the accurate modes. This is what is going to be the biggest thing this year that all of us are going to have to test. And honestly, your average TV reviewer is not going to really be able to test this unless they have equipment. Now, there's some of us out here that has equipment. Obviously, you're going to have Caleb, my boy Caleb from Digital Trends. What's up, Caleb? He's going to be able to test it. You're going to have Vincent Teal, okay, at HDTV Test. He's obviously going to be able to test it. Classy Tech Calibrations. He's a calibrator. My other fellow calibrators out there, they're going to be able to test this. I will also be able to test and measure this. And I plan on getting my hands on both of these sets. I'll determine whether I'm going to keep one or both, as well as if I can with Sony. We're going to see what's what. But nonetheless, I will get my hands on this and test these for myself, because I want to see what's what and see, besides the measurements, how does it actually translate into actual content? Because again, even if one may claim that it's brighter than the other, and this is why you don't want to get so caught up in numbers, it does not mean that in the real world, it's actually going to beat the other TV. For instance, Sony is known because of their processor. They generally, with their LED lines, have less dimming zones, yet they seem to do more with it. And they equal or rival the competition. Same thing with their OLED technology, whether it's WRGB or QD OLED. Sony's processor, their XR processor, puts that brightness right where it needs to be. And even though it may measure lower, it actually looks brighter in real content. So these are some of the things that I'm going to test. A lot of us are going to test. Your average content creator may not be able to give you specific numbers, but if these differences are visible on camera, I'm sure you will see that in their footage, and they'll just relay a lot of the measurement numbers and tests that we put out. But I will do my best to get my hands on these television sets as soon as they drop. I am ready. Okay, I'm looking forward to this. So whether it come March or April, I'm going to be one of the first ones, just like I was with the S95B. I'm going to be one of the first ones with the G4, M4, and or the S95D. I don't know if I'm going to get the S95D. I may get the S90D only because I'm kind of torn with the matte screen, but then I'm also very curious with the matte screen, and I'm just wondering, I know on one side of the coin, you lose the gloss, you may lose some impact, but then in a dark room, is it really going to be that big of a deal? So I don't know. We'll see. It depends on which one is going to be released first. We don't know any of this. We don't know if Samsung's going to release the S90D first. Is it going to be the S95D? So if they release the S95D first, I'll probably end up with that. If they release the S90D first, then that may confuse which one I may go with. Same thing. Is the G4 going to come out before the M4 or vice versa? So it depends on what Samsung and LG decides to do and what their release dates are. Once we get a sure footing on that, I will update you all on that, okay? And I'll be able to give you all more of a plan. But I know I wasn't at CES this year. It just couldn't work out for me. I will attempt to do that next year, but that's a little bit down the road. I plan to attend some of the other events. I'll definitely be at the Value Electronics Shootout. Hopefully you should see me at M-Wave and a couple of other events as well if they pop up. I'm going to do the best that I can, all right? But I'm definitely going to get my hands on this technology, and we're going to see what's what. And once we get it, we'll figure it out. Hey, maybe Vincent might get it first. He usually gets access to these things pretty quick, which it is what it is, and we still get numbers. But regardless, I'm going to get it. I want to see what's what, and I'll even try to compare it to last year's or some older tech, right? Because as we get these new TVs, a lot of times it's harder to compare it to older tech. So it is what it is. That's what I want to say. If you haven't subscribed, I kind of ask that you do so. Please hit that notification bell. Get the likes up. Feel free to share my content. Thank you so much. If there's something that you would like for me to do in the meantime in terms of a video, please let me know. And if you have any questions right now, this is your time to ask them in the chat. If you're here, I'm just going to give a few minutes for that. Okay. Going to give a few minutes for that. And other than that, we're going to be out. But yeah, this is some promising tech. Honestly, while I'm waiting to see if anyone has any tech questions, if you ask me, as much as I'm known in the community to be a Samsung guy, remember, I started out with LG first, right? I started out with LG, and I was big on the G1. I understood the C1, but I was more of the G series type of guy. So I've been on that tip, and I'll probably stay on that tip. I'm very curious to see what the G4 and or the M4 is going to look like. Very curious. I'm also very curious to test this wireless box because I want to see how well it works. I mean, obviously it's got to work good or it'd be a lot of complaints, but you know, that could be said about the One Connect box with Samsung. I'm also curious to see if Samsung fixed any issues with the One Connect box. Does the One Connect box now have 48 gigabyte HDMI 2.1 ports versus 40? All of these things I'm going to get in and see and take a look at. I don't think we're going to have much issue with the build quality. I think we're past that. And again, with the S95B scenario, I think that was more of an experimental. It was the first year with QD OLED. And I'm so thankful for Samsung to come out with that. Because if Samsung never came out with the S95B, then we wouldn't have had all the competition from the A95K and the G3. We wouldn't have all of this stuff that we have today. It wouldn't lead us to a potential of 3,000 nits or even 2,500 or whatever it is, over 2,000 sustained nits of OLED, and even micro or mini LED hitting over 4,000 nits. We wouldn't have all of this. It wouldn't be any competition. So I'm thankful for Samsung changing the game. That was one of the game changers, and I'll always remember 2022 as a special year because of that. But with that being said, I don't see anyone have any questions. So feel free to ask me questions later in the comment section. I'll do my best I can to answer it. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. It's been a blast. I really do appreciate it. Again, as soon as we get word on what's to come, I'm going to break it. Okay? As soon as we get that word. All right? But in the meantime, I'm on my way out. All right? So y'all be blessed, and I'll see y'all in the next one.